and some will be the same discussions, but some will be a lot different as well. How many people are here new today? That's good. Welcome. Welcome. You know what's really radiates is that there was discussion over the last 10 years that we need to come together like this. And it's always, you know, discussed we need to come together, and it hasn't seen fruition. We all come together in our different tribal councils, our First Nations. But this is a long time coming, and we're seeing this. The responses via text and emails and stuff indicates that we need to have a bigger forum. We needed a bigger venue. Previous to this, though, we didn't anticipate such a huge response, but we'll continue with this. We're having another one already planned in the making to come together. And we discussed yesterday how there's so many richnesses within our communities and our teachings and our medicines at home. And that's, you know, self-sustaining. That's living off the land. And I had shared a story about how I was brought up with my mom's mom, my Kushi, and she'd take me on the land, and she'd take me just in the backyard of a little small community, and we have medicines available for us. So, like I said, our family, our kids had a lot of eczema, and I guess I was a kid then, but my cousins and all of us, that's what we had, and we would go and we'd pick these medicines, and we'd give thanks in a good way that way, and take the medicines, and then we didn't have anything. So we knew we had this learnings from our grandparents, our Kokums, our Kushis, our Tsitsinas, and we knew how to do that. So when we think about going forward and relying on what our ancestors did with their medicines and their ways of being, and we heard about the sweats and our prayers are so important, but also too on the international level, the national level, the regional level, how do we affect change, and how do we make sure that that person that has to go for catheters and how to depends and all that aren't increasingly humiliated. We heard about the infection that it continues to solve when you're provided the same catheter, and you're supposed to wash it off with the waters in our communities that aren't at the best that it should be, and how the increase of infection, the increase of diseases can be continued and perpetuated, and how that there's just so much red tape, as we've heard. So how do we do that and come together and affect change? And we do in our communities have our little apprentices in training, our little boys waiting to learn about what all this is and how we can be strong, and they're just hungry for that. And our little girl matriarchs in training as well, just hungry to be able to take their rightful place in terms of being self-sustaining, and in terms of our ancestral knowledge coming forward. So it's important that we have this discussion. It's important that we come together, and I thank you. I see so many more chiefs and counselors here, so many more elders and community members here today, and those that are working on the front line, and those that are caregiving within our home fires as well. I welcome you all here, and hopefully we have, well, not hopefully, I know we will have just as great discussions as we can. In the meantime, I'd imagine we'll have to do our particulars in terms of food and everything, and ensure that everybody's well taken care of here today. So welcome everyone, and we'll work hard for our Indigenous people. And I said there's a lot of disciplines here, a lot of great minds here to come together to have make a difference and to be able to affect change. And it's great too to see Helen and her crew from First Nations Insurance here as well. Welcome. And like I said, so many people, so many great minds in this room. And Chief Ben probably got a text a little while ago. And there he is. It's a little bit of an inside joke, but he's not even paying attention. We'll look forward to visiting with you. There's a little mini round dance that some people are having, some kids are having at noon time. So I'm going to try and race over there and come right back. So with that, thank you for lifting the pipe this morning, and for the prayers that we so all need. thank you for all of those that have traveled so far. Chief Carol Bernard, as I graze over the room, I think came from the longest distance so far. So it's great to see everybody here, near and far, and welcome, and we'll try to do our best. There'll be some of us giving up our seats, so if you don't see us sitting in our seats, it's not because we don't think this is important. It's because we want to make sure that our visitors are here as well. So with that, try not to be long-winded again. Chief Craig said, talk too much. Short and sweet. So there's my short and sweet for today. Hi.
Thank you, Vice Chief. And I'm going to talk a bit about the agenda here. And while Sandy, Red Iron, Eric Bell, Gary Eagle, if you want to come up, while I give a bit of an overview of the agenda thing, like I said. So we have, we're going to be fairly consistent about following through and hopefully give you the breaks that you need to take. And not like yesterday, I was so glad you were so patient. But remember, we started later too, but
I worked 10 years as a EMS member with Onion Lake Cree Nation. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. I worked 10 years as an EMS member of Onion Lake Cree Nation. Throughout that 10 years, I've gained a lot of experience, worked with a lot of people, gone through a lot of challenges with working with the services. A little bit of a history here at the challenges. Before 1996, Onion Lake Cree Nation informed external ambulance services to attend to medical and traumatic emergencies for band members of the community. Leadership at that time had the opportunity to purchase ambulance from one of the neighboring services, but at 3 times the cost. At that time, Onion Lake band membership leadership said no to that external service. They then said, why don't we go on to purchase our own ambulance and provide our own services to our community members, in which the Onion Lake EMS was born in 1996. From that period on, we had challenges related to funding restraints. We've been struggling to keep up with non-First Nations ambulance services of the province due to these funding restraints. We did not receive any subsidy from external sources. The only subsidy we did receive was from Onion Lake Cree Nation. Since then, the local ambulance services did go through some growing pains, some challenges, in which I'll explain, and Sandy will explain more of the administrative side of how things led up to the challenges. A few examples of the decreased funding are, we did operate 2 full-time units 24 hours a day, 7 days a week due to call volume, but on a budget where revenue was barely adequate to sustain 1 full-time unit. Operations took their toll on the ambulances. Other ambulance services replace their older units when they go into 300, 400, or sometimes 500,000 kilometers, which is okay because they have the funding to keep up with maintenance costs. We felt we needed to replace Onion Lake EMS units around 200,000 kilometers. And you ask why? Well, you all know why. It's because of the reserve roads. That in addition to the inadequate maintenance costs. So some of the units had stress fractures on the door frames. Triangular bandages were required to hold up the sway bar underneath the rear axle. I remember crawling underneath the ambulance before calls to ensure that triangular bandage was tight. Burnt wires rendered electronics useless on the units. Maintenance shops refused to service Onion Lake EMS ambulances because of outstanding expenses. Over the years, we have had many excellent, proficient, and respectable health professionals apply with Onion Lake EMS. The majority of EMTs that gained much valuable experience with our service left because we were unable to match wages of other subsidized EMS services. It's a fact that we are one of the busiest rural EMS services of Saskatchewan, but one of the most underpaid and underfunded ambulance providers of the province. I keep in contact with some of the ex-employees that we have had, and most state that they would have continued and would have returned to Onion Lake EMS if we were able to match wages of our neighbors. Onion Lake EMS staff never thought twice when returning Onion Lake Cree Nation members from major centers to our home hospital, which would be Lloydminster Hospital. This was done when patients did not require higher level of service that major centers offer, but did still need hospital care, although were unable to return home. Returning our band members home was an expense not picked up by NIHB. The expense was covered by Onion Lake Cree Nation. Our neighboring EMS services do not return our patients back to Lloyd Hospital because they do not get paid to return the transfer. At one point, Onion Lake EMS drove all the way to Regina to pick up a patient, an Onion Lake band member, and return that patient back to Lloyd Hospital. The equipment that we provided to the Onion Lake staff members was badly outdated. No staff member wants to work with that outdated equipment. This, in turn, added to the turnover rate we experienced. In 2012, we replaced our LifePak 300 cardiac monitor defibrillators, which probably Eric and Sandy remember working with. The new LifePak machines, our neighboring services were already purchasing LifePak 15s, while we were just as excited to purchase the LifePak 12 machines. These new LifePak machines were capable of cardiac monitoring and cardiac defibrillation, in addition to completing the monitoring vital signs, which frees up the hands of the EMS providers. As you can see, the main revenue is generated from the emergency calls we provide to the the Onion Lake Cree Nation members, which the majority of the calls are paid by the NIHB. As I mentioned earlier, Onion Lake Cree Nation does subsidize a portion of the EMS expenses to ensure that we are not over budget and to carry on medical and traumatic services. In combination of not receiving that subsidy as external EMS providers of Saskatchewan do, and or increased rates from the NIHB, decreased a lot of aspects and efficiency of a functioning ambulance service for Cree Nations. These signs and symptoms of decreased funding were not directly because of NIHB, but in addition, they were a result of secondary issues. And that's all I have for my presentation.
Thank you, Adrian. I'm going to get Sandy Red-Iron. Sandy obtained his first responders training in 1995. He's instrumental in starting the Bovell First Responders program. And he fundraised and purchased a used ambulance from ARV, whatever, in Saskatoon. He helped Rick Redekop ran as a group for 5 years, went and obtained EMT through SIAS and Saskatoon in 2000. In 2001, started his ambulance service, ran that for 13 years, and he tried his hand at the oil and gas industry for a year as a medic, and in January 2013, started working for Onion Lake EMS. Now in 2014, he started as manager of Onion Lake EMS and is enjoying that very much. And he's been with the fire department for 17 years and was an RCMP special constable.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I don't know how much more I can add to Adrian's comments here, but we are regulated by SCOP. That's for all the staff that have to be registered and be current with their training. So we're monitored by them. That's the Saskatchewan College of Paramedics. Our units are all inspected, and they have to pass, like Adrian talked about, all the challenges that we've had over the years, and we have to make sure that they're running properly. So we do daily checks, we do cleaning the units and everything like that, just to make sure that we're all ready to go every day. So like the bar is set pretty high. I think Adrian, when he was working there, they had lots of regulations and policies that they followed, and I just continue to work in that capacity. Some of the challenges that we currently face, like he said, are funding bring our patients back, and we do take a lot of hits when we're return transfers. I was talking to Eric Bell earlier here, and he's been with the SEMSA board for many years, and we had discussions with government about our rates, negotiating our rates with First Nations. We operate different than regional services, and I was again, I'll leave that for him to talk a little bit about. He's been there for quite a few years, so I'll finish off with that. I'll have some comments later.
Thank you. I'm going to now introduce Eric Bell. Eric is a member of the Lac La Ronge Indian Band. He received his education at St. Michael's Indian Residential School in Duck Lake, St. Thomas College in North Battleford. He has an environmental sciences diploma from Lethbridge Community College in Alberta. He was employed for 22 years with Parks Canada as their national park warden. In 1994, he purchased the La Ronge Emergency Medical Services and has since then continues to operate a successful business for the past 19 years. And with his experience in the medical service industry, he has been actively involved as an executive member of the Saskatchewan Ambulance Association and on the board of directors for the Saskatchewan Emergency Medical Service Association. So, Eric?
Thank you. Good morning. I am the actual sole owner of and operator of La Ronge EMS, and I have been in the emergency medical services business since 1994 and have been involved with Indian Health for the past 20 years at various levels. I have been at many contract negotiation tables for Saskatchewan Emergency Medical Services Association, negotiating road ambulance contracts for ambulance services. For 8 years, I was involved in providing medical transportation for our band members with medical taxis. And for the past 15 years, I've been providing medevac services to northern Saskatchewan, along with Transwest Air, doing aircraft medevacs. Today I'd like to share with you some of my experiences and challenges that I've encountered with First Nations and Inuit Health Branch and the non-insured health benefit programs. Some are frustrating and some are not so frustrating. But to start out with, I'll tell you a little bit about our company. Like I mentioned, we provide ambulance services to the clients of Mamaweet and Churchill River Health District in northeastern Saskatchewan. And we provide two distinct services. One is the ground ambulance and the other one is the medevacs. The medevac service is contractual arrangements with between La Ronge EMS and Transwest Air. And we are contracted to our health district, and we provide services in our health district to 12 communities in the health region. When I first started La Ronge EMS in 1994, I had 6 staff. I was the only First Nations on staff and did approximately 1,100 trips per year. Today, we do over 2,300 road ambulance trips, 700 medevac trips, and I have a staff of 27 employees. Now, 60% of our staff are First Nations and or Northerners, and 84% of all our clients in our health district are First Nations people. We started a program about 2 years into the infancy of our company, where I felt that our biggest resource was our people, and what we wanted to do was initiate a training and employment opportunity program that would hire a lot of our band members and or northerners that lived in the area. And so we started this not realizing the success that we would have. And what has happened over the years now is that a lot of the people that I hired back in 1996, 97 are still with the company. And it's created a lot of opportunities, and a lot of them have become role models for some of our younger people that live in the various communities, like Grandmother's Bay and Stanley Mission, Sikichu and Hall Lake, and even in La Ronge. And a lot of my staff now are, they get paid quite well. Our staff are all unionized, which presents its own challenges, but in my mind, without the help of the union, I don't think we would be where we are in terms of having the qualified employees that we have, and where they can get paid good wages and live a lifestyle that you know, that they should be entitled to for all the work that they do. The other thing is because our service is on the Lac La Ronge Reserve, a lot of our staff don't pay tax, which is a real benefit for them. And now their take-home pay is probably more than a lot of people that work at the mines. And when we have staff meetings, and I go in there, and I always tease the staff because our parking lot looks like a new car sales yard. And, but you know, it's a thing that we're proud of. It's a thing that we have done over the years that you know, that took time to develop, and now my company is receiving the benefits for having long-term employees, and we continue to work with our band members to train not only our band members but people that live in the north that you know, sometimes don't have the employment opportunities that are available in the south. Over the years, one of the things that I see happening over the years is the population dynamics have increased in a lot of our communities. For example, in 1994, Grandmother's Bay had only approximately 500 people. Now it's close to 1,500. Stanley Mission was about 1,200. Now they're over 2,000 people. And with the population increases, it's kind of impacted our services significantly. And I'm going to talk about two challenges that that we've encountered. One of them is interfacility transfers, and Sandy and Adrian have addressed it a little bit here, but what happens in our community. And the other one is the challenges that we have with our medevac service. Because of the increase in population and the number of trips that we do, we find that the interfacility transfers from La Ronge to Prince Albert and Saskatoon have increased significantly, but over the years I've found that the hospitals in our major cities, whether Prince Albert or Saskatoon, receive more and more patients from all the surrounding communities, primarily because the local hospitals are not able to provide the appropriate level of treatment and have to transfer them to the southern people. This kind of creates a bottleneck of activity and taxes the holding capacities of the larger hospitals. What I see happening now is that the patients receive the appropriate treatment and then transferred back to the hospitals in their own communities until they are ready to be discharged. This sounds simple enough from an organization point of view, but it just doesn't happen that way, as we all know. First of all, if you're a First Nation patient, you have to get pre-authorization to get transferred back to your local hospital. This authorization is not always available for various reasons. One, you can't always get the authorization. You can't contact the person that's supposed to give you the authorization. And when you do get authorization, it's for another mode of transportation. So, which in some cases is a medical taxi. And I've been involved with medical taxis for about 8 years. And I also provided that service for the band. And at one time I was called to pick up a patient who had an IV running and had just had some major surgery. And the patient could hardly sit. And fortunately, I had an ambulance in Saskatoon at that time, and so I called up my staff and said, "You better get to the hospital here. We're going to take a patient home." And of course, we were able to do that. But over the years, these problems still continued, and if I got a call from the Royal University Hospital and say we have a patient to return home and we can't get authorization, what we would do then is coordinate our trips so that if we took a patient into Saskatoon, we would then bring a patient home. And that meant our ambulances were going back and forth pretty steady. And but there were a few times, like Adrian mentioned there, that we have to bite the bullet and go pick up a patient that we knew very well that we weren't going to get paid for. I know there have been many times where I've received calls from our band members asking if I would go pick up patients that are, or their mom and dad that just had an operation and they can't get authorization and they don't have any transportation. And we always felt as a company that we had a moral and ethical obligation, to our First Nations clients to ensure that that they get the proper treatment, the proper transportation methods, but also to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of not if the family could pay or the patient could pay or whatnot. We felt that we always had to be there, and I know over the years there's been all kinds of incidents that have happened where we just don't get paid for for what we do sometimes. But one thing I can say, in the past few months, things have gotten considerably better because now the Saskatoon Health District, they coordinate the transfers back to Larange and pay for the return transfers when they cannot get authorization from non-insured health benefits. So in that way, interfacility transfers have improved somewhat for us, thanks to the Saskatoon Health District, but we still feel that there is a long way to go here to negotiate something with non-insured health benefits. During my years of being on the board with SEMSA, the Saskatchewan EMS Association, I've had a lot of opportunity to discuss many issues, including interfacility transfer from personnel with MSB. Back then it was MSB Medical Services Branch, now First Nations and Inuit Health Branch. And I found a lot of interesting things that occurred at the negotiating table, but one of the things I found most interesting was the mindset of the negotiating teams from Health Canada. It seems to me that Health Canada believes that First Nation patients that were transferred to Saskatoon should stay there until they're ready to be discharged and then returned home. Now, in today's reality, that just isn't happening, and it won't happen because of the bottleneck that occurs at our major hospitals in our bigger centers. So that was one of the things that I observed at the table, and I noted, and I want to make mention here that at times we had Sask Health and Health Canada at the table, and we would be discussing rates or who should pay for what. And it was quite interesting, the amount of discussion that was held on the health transfer dollars from the federal government to the provincial government, who should pay what, who should do what, who has the jurisdiction. And I kind of thought it was kind of strange because we were talking about medical transportation issues and they were talking about a much bigger issue that I don't know if it's ever going to get resolved. And they've been doing this now for 15, 20 years. I kind of get frustrated with the whole thing when I sit down at the table and they're still talking about it and nothing really ever seems to be done. The other issue that I have with dealing with non-insurance health benefits is our medevac system. Now, our medevac system primarily transports patients into the Ranch Hospital or Prince Albert or Saskatoon from remote areas of the province where there is no on-site nurse or doctor to conduct medical assessments, and also to the outlying communities like Wollaston Lake, South End, Pine House, Sandy Bay are some of the primary areas that are in our health district. But now we're flying to La Loche, Pachinak, Beauval, Isla Cross, all the west side, Stony Rapids, Uranium City. So we're pretty much doing a lot of the north. And to give a little history here, when medevacs were originally done in Saskatchewan, it was a real ad hoc service. Whatever plane was available, whatever pilot was available, regardless of what the weather was like, these guys jumped in airplanes and they flew to the trap line or they flew to a community, picked a patient up, threw him in the back of the airplane, and try to get them back to the hospital. We've progressed a little bit since then. When I first started the medevacs back in about '95, we were asked to provide EMTs on the flights, primarily to help lessen the pressure that the nursing staff were having in the remote communities, in the outlying communities. Health Canada at that time paid the nurses to fly with the patients to the hospital and then return them back to the community. The nurses got so busy that they couldn't leave the communities for extended periods of time and leave the communities unattended. So Laurent GMS filled a function to provide a medical escort service that would allow the nurses to stay right in the communities. A lot of the main concern, I guess, was getting, the patient to the appropriate level of care. And we started this service, and it was okay for the first 6, 7 months, 8 months, and then all of a sudden I get a call from non-insurance health benefits saying that they don't pay for paramedics on the airplane. And I says, oh, and when did that happen? Oh, well, it's always been in our policy. Okay, so what do we have to do to make sure that we get paid? And they said, well, you got to get authorization, pre-authorization for every flight. The problem with that is that we're an emergency service. And to get authorization in a timely manner doesn't always work. And I'll give you an example. When I was talking to the director of non-insured health benefits, I said to him, I says, what would happen if a child from South End got run over by a truck and we have to get in there to transport that patient, that child out really quickly? Standard answer was you have to get authorization. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Within an hour of that conversation, that same incident happened. We had a 5-year-old child that got run over by a truck, was in serious, serious condition. And I told my staff, get going, I'm going to phone for authorization. So I phoned, finally got a hold of somebody, and they said they would get back to me. We got the patient, flew the patient out of South End to La Ronge, to Saskatoon, and we already had the patient in Saskatoon. The patient was getting surgery when I heard back from non-insured health benefits. We never got paid. So that really frustrated me. And so I decided, well, you know what? When you quit banging your head against the wall, it feels good. But we still felt that we had a moral obligation and an ethical obligation to our First Nation clients in remote areas. We continued to do medevacs, and I continued to submit the bills, and finally I took all my invoices right up to the Minister of Health, Alan Rock, in Ottawa, and said, we need to deal with this. No, we don't, because we don't pay for paramedics on medevacs. The bill that year was over $50,000 that I wasn't going to get paid for. So it's like my son said to me, Dad, don't sweat the small things. So, okay, so we carried on. Finally, in about 2005, Pat Kamplik, who's the owner of Transwest Air, and I developed a proposal for a medevac system that would meet the needs of the health district. And we met with Health Canada, SaskHealth, Saskatchewan Air Ambulance, and the Mamaweet and Churchill River District. And we presented a proposal for an appropriate level of care and a medevac service that would meet the needs of the health district. And everybody agreed to it, and it was decided that we were going to go ahead with these medevacs. Now, we did these medevacs until 2008, and then we encountered a problem. We had a fatal aircraft accident at Sandy Bay. So after the accident, and we decided that we would suspend the service and conduct a full safety and a full evaluation of the medevacs, and that was conducted in conjunction with our health district. It took about a year, and during that year, Saskatchewan Area AM stepped up to the plate and started doing all the medevacs that we were doing, and for our health district anyway, and we were doing about 250 medevacs at that time. But after a year, in 2009, a medevac service that was primarily a basic to intermediate life support service with a 24/7 dedicated medevac aircraft. We had central dispatch. There was quality control for patient care, aircraft safety, flight following to track aircraft locations, and proper triage for patient care and the appropriate use of all our resources. This system is basically a system with Saskatchewan Air AM, and all our paramedics were required to have Canadian Air Medical Technician training. SaskHealth, everybody agreed that this is the service that we need, and all the ingredients were in place. Let's go ahead with it. So as I mentioned earlier, we did about 700 missions a year. We only estimated 250, but we ended up doing 700 missions. And we thought everything was good, everything was going along good. But guess what? Last June 2013, Health Canada informed us that they would not pay for the paramedics on board, as their policy dictates that they don't pay for that service. We reminded Health Canada that they were at the table when this service was agreed upon. Ottawa replied that the people from Health Canada that were at the table did not have authority to agree to the medevac service, and that we owed them about $1 million for services that were overpaid for the previous 3 or 4 years. So we had a lot of problems with that. So I found over the years there that Health Canada is such a huge bureaucracy that you very rarely get the same people at the negotiating table. You're always talking to the messenger, and you never really get a chance to talk to the people that really make the decisions. I find that their mindset is, and their policy is a little bit outdated. Yes, it has been rewritten, and the language has changed a bit to be politically correct, but the mindset of what has happened 20, 30 years ago is still the same. And now I believe what is happening, if we're not already there, is because of their policy that we're going to eventually have a two-tiered health service, one for provincial people and one for our our First Nations people in Saskatchewan. But healthcare is always changing, systems are changing, processes are changing, the way medical services are delivered are changing, and the only thing that is constant is that the non-insured health benefit policy hasn't changed. Thank you very much.
Did I get my paper back? My notes. Yeah, thanks. Oh, yeah, you did well. Very well. Thank you. So I have Gary Eagle now. Thank you, Eric. Gary Eagle from the Saskatoon Health Region. And Gary is no stranger. He is from the Whitecap Dakota First Nation band member and used to be a counselor, if I remember. And is currently employed by the Saskatoon Health Region as a lead consultant for the First Nations and Métis Health Service, which is a new department stationed out of St. Paul's Hospital. And the First Nations and Métis Health Service team strives to provide an integrated and culturally respectful approach to First Nation and Métis people coming into the Saskatoon Health Region for treatment and other services. So, Gary, you want to?
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to the elders, the chief and councillors that are here, FSIN for putting this together, and the community members from the various communities for being here. I'm going to talk a bit about the program. It's, like Benita talked about, it is at the St. Paul's Hospital, but we do service RUH and City Hospital. Right now, there's just 3 of us. There's myself, the lead consultant. I've got Val Bradfield. She's from Larange, and she speaks Cree, and she has a background as an RN. We also have Delia Alberg. She's a Dene, and she has a background as well as a social worker. And what we do, I'll give you a typical, first I'll start off how we started. There was a Aboriginal health strategy that was put forward from Kiniston Company and SHR in 2010. There were some recommendations that were made from that, and as well, at about a year early, around the same time, Tony Dagnoni had released Patients First, and there was recommendations from both groups about having navigation services for First Nations and Métis people. And the proposal was put forward by a previous consultant, and it took about a year to get approval. And with any proposal, you don't always get 100% of what you asked for. So instead of getting 7 people, we've got 3, and 2 of them are the navigators and myself, the lead consultant. So a typical day would be we would print off the census for St. Paul's Hospital. Because when somebody gets admitted to St. Paul's Hospital, there's no tick mark that says you're First Nations or Métis. So we have to print off the census and go by last name, which is not a very, it's a low-tech way of finding people, our own people. If you've married into a last name such as Smith or Burns or Jones and you're First Nations, it's a little bit harder to find that First Nations or Métis person. What we do is we'll highlight the names that we believe are First Nations or Métis, and we'll also go to the floors and we'll ask the nurse managers if anybody that we have on our list for that floor at St. Paul's Hospital, are they First Nations or Métis, or are we missing somebody? So we'll go into the patient's room and we'll introduce ourselves, we'll introduce the program, and we'll let them know that we're here to help them navigate their way through the system. If they have any issues or concerns, just contact us and we'll give them our pamphlet and our card, and we'll chart any issues or concerns that they have right there on the floor so that the other team knows what the patient is facing. What we're finding is sometimes the First Nations and Métis patient, they'll tell the nursing staff and the doctor a bit about what they're feeling, but when they meet with us, they'll tell us a little bit more. Maybe it's because they feel a bit more relaxed having a First Nations person ask them. I don't know what it is, but that's what we're finding, and we'll chart whatever we find additionally so that the rest of the health team knows. And so one of the other things that I'm going to talk about as well is what the services that we do, like coordination and liaison. We can provide links to health supports and help coordinate the home care, admitting and discharging issues, transportation, accommodation, meals within the First Nations Inuit Health Branch guidelines. And so even though we're working from the inside, we're part of the health region, we still face that frustrating phone call to non-insured health benefits. Give you an example, I had, there's a gentleman that came in with his wife, First Nations people, came in with his wife to St. Paul's Hospital. They're both, she was admitted and triaged and placed on one of the floors, and he was, one of the social workers on the floor had already contacted non-insured health benefits. So he was covered for meals and accommodation. The hospital or the hotel where he was at was about a block away, so he didn't have to have transportation. The discharge was delayed by a week, and so he came to me and asked me if he could get an additional coverage for meals, and so I contacted non-insured health benefits. And the gentleman that I spoke to said, no, I need a letter from the doctor. I said, well, why do you need a letter from the doctor? Because he's already considered an escort. Why do I need another letter? No, that's what our policy says. I said, but he's already covered, though. It doesn't make any sense. He's already covered. You already have him as an escort. He's sitting right in front of me right now. So I gave him all the information, and that person just wouldn't budge from that policy. So I had to write a letter, and so I contacted the social worker on the floor so we could collaborate together and write that letter of support for that escort. I gave her the name of that patient, and so she called non-insured health benefits, and within 5 minutes she got coverage. And she did, all it really took was just contacting somebody else at non-insured health benefits. It just depends on who you call at non-insured health benefits. It's frustrating. It's really frustrating, and I've made that comment to Alex and to Steve Argue and Andrea Reynoldson. I've also, it was really frustrating because it took 3 hours of my time to get that advocacy done, and it took her 5 minutes, and she's a non-native person that called, and it was a non-native person that was working at non-insured health benefits that just took that phone call, and it was covered so quickly, and it was 3.5 hours my time that was tied up. It was just very, very frustrating working with non-insured health benefits, but we at least have a good rapport with them. We can still approach them and let them know that there's ex-staff on their floor or their team that's putting up a barrier to us. One of the things that we do is we help navigate the health system and support patient and family needs, complex care needs, understanding of medical procedures, guidance to the health system, and cross-cultural understanding. We also do that, like I said, the interpretation part of it, support through admission, medical procedures and recovery, language interpretation to promote cross-cultural understanding and understanding of medical procedures. One of the things that Valerie, she has a background, like I talked about, as an RN, but she also has a strong background in cultural beliefs. So she was approached by the ICU staff, Sherry, the nurse manager, and had said, is there a way that you can give us at least some instructions or some education on traditional medicines? Because what they're facing is that, that uncertainty of what the contraindication between the traditional medicine, and that it can also be not only just for traditional medicine, but the people that believe in that homeopathic, Jensen's medical, that not the branded stuff that you buy. And so Valerie had did a presentation to the ICU staff, and about 120 people were scheduled in, and she did 3 of those presentations, and it went really well. And with any group, there's going to be some pushback, and there wasn't any overt racism or any overt pushback. It was just a lot about the questions about how do you really know that such and such medicine works on the heart? Well, how do you know this medicine works on the diabetes part of it? And we can't, it wasn't our place to prove or disprove or to pull out a medical journal and say this is why we believe. That's just how we're taught. So there were some questions about the validity of what you had talked about, but that's going to happen wherever you try to educate people. There's some people who are just stuck in their ways and they don't want to listen. There's some people that are more than happy to listen, and so that's just some of the, I guess, some of the examples of working in the health system. One of the other things that we do is the advocacy part of it. We help staff and clients better understand complex issues, communication between staff and clients, the patients as well, and voice for those who may need assistance, promoting cultural competency of staff and services, and addressing issues when they occur. We also have a client representative, and what the client representative does is they take complaints from the family and from the patient as well, and her name is Yvonne Tessier. She started, I believe, in July of last year, and what the client rep does is they'll take a referral from either us or from the floor, or the patient will call. She'll speak with the staff and the physicians involved in that person's care, and then she'll talk to the patient, and she'll try to get back to, claw back from where that flashpoint had happened, where that disagreement occurred, and who was working. And if she doesn't feel that she's getting the true story from the staff, she'll go right to the manager, and from the manager she'll find out who was really working on that shift and where this disagreement had happened. And they're given internally, I believe, a month to resolve that issue and find a common ground, either an apology or clarification on what had happened. If you want, I can give you the number to the client rep. It's 306-655-0250 or 1-866-655-5066. So we work, because of budget and the way that the proposal had happened, we work Monday to Friday, 8 to 4:30. Ideally, we were looking to move into emergency and have a 24/7 service, and also move over to RUH. We might be stationed out of St. Paul's Hospital. That doesn't stop us from going, like I said, to RUH or to City Hospital, depending on the service that's requested. So there's just 3 of us, like I said, and right now there's actually just 2. One of my navigators is sick on medical leave, and so it just leaves the 2 of us for 3 hospitals. So we get stretched out really thin pretty quickly, but we're trying to do the best that we can. We might be late, I say this a lot, that we might be late to having this program to serve our First Nations Métis people. Whitehorse's had theirs, Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary. Regina's had theirs for 30 years, Winnipeg, Toronto, Thunder Bay, and some of the eastern provinces have had theirs already, running for a while. And we might be late to the gate, but we're going to do our best to try and finish first and do the best that we can for our First Nations and Métis people. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. I'm going to leave about 5-10 minutes for questions from the floor of the panel before they go. Any burning questions? I have one. I'm not supposed to ask, but I'm going to anyway. Gary, do you have a pamphlet or something that can kind of go around, or just a unit? Okay, there you go. Because that's a really good service. It's something that's been asked for a long, long time. Any other questions? On the ambulances, anything about subsidies? Anything about... Yep.
I just wanted to ask, for us, we're in a unique position because we're in between health regions, Regina, Qu'Appelle Health, and Saskatoon Health Region with our 4 communities. And one of the things we've noticed in the last while is, and it may be different because more your presentations are from the north, but some of our First Nation members have been enrolled towards one health region. The ambulance would take them, and we kind of realized we found out our ambulance over there are privatized, right? And so they've taken some of our First Nation members into, say, for example, Fort Qu'Appelle. That's where they're supposed to be taking them. And so upon receiving service for a couple hours or an hour, they're enrouted back into a second health region, and they're left at the one hospital in Wadena. And so sometimes upon leaving them, the family member has to go pick up the patient and bring him home. And in one instance, in this regard, this happened. The patient, a few days later, the family ended up driving this patient to the Regina General, where this patient ended up in intensive care. But at the same time, about a month later, they received an ambulance bill. And this is not just one isolated case. This has been a trend that's been occurring within our health regions with the ambulance. And so in the most recent, that ended up with a $1,200 ambulance bill to pay, and this person was in intensive care. And so with FSIN, when we can't go sit with right into Martin Scout to find I told him, you take this bill to that laying in intensive individual or family. I guess because we are really moving in privatized area. We also and it's all and a lot of people don't have the resources either on social assistance, as we all were working poor people making the minimum wage parity, pay us. So it is having if there's we at Touch need to look for that solution, because this is a trend that's been occurring. We're not getting that are starting to like dance pay for that ambulance cost so as not to and burden upon the patient that's recovering. So if there's any ideas or so, we'd really appreciate it, even from any been doing. All we see the trend, and within our tribal council, we could try to provide our help provide for us. I'd like to share that. Thank you.
Anybody want to take a shot at that?
Exactly what you were saying there. We sometimes run into that in the north too, but I had a meeting. Woman's name is from in having problems with local ambulance services. know which one was coming or where they were going and that sort of thing. The problem that I see there is you're talking to see exactly who's coming, who's responsible for that area, and where the patients are supposed to be. Some is you are supposed to be transferred to the closest medical facility. Then some in the health district, that's where they're supposed to be going. Now you can transfer to another is if, okay, so those are a couple you can check in that regards. As far as